So, hello, everybody. I'm Irene, the director of the Institute for Classics Education. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to provide free resources and support to educators who teach Homer and ancient Greek texts in English translation. We strive to provide a Greek context on Greek texts for anyone who wishes to learn more about them as well. And in addition to seminars like this one, we have a 12-week course on the Iliad in the fall and the Odyssey in the spring, and we continue to develop new courses by request. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions about our programs or would like to request a program. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Patricia Vandigriff. Patty teaches at Jefferson Township High School in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and Patty has been teaching for 23 years. She holds a master's in curriculum and a master's in the art of teaching. So take it away, Patty.
Well, thank you. Also, good afternoon, and thank you for coming on the middle of a Saturday afternoon. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here to be able to just talk a little bit about my first reading of Verity's translation, and then move into how I actually taught it for the first time last year on, with my first group of students. I'm an environmental education academy teacher. And so there's a sense of that we're always thinking about the environment. And so we look at how the characters connect to their world, their land as well. So that's kind of my lens, and it gives me different connections. One of the things that came up a lot when we were talking about the Odyssey and the Iliad was reciprocity. And I knew the word, but I didn't really quite understand it and how to connect it to the reading of Homer. And so I want to talk a little bit about this definition. We're going to connect to anger, wrath, rage, which is the Greek word min, and Achilles' dilemma. And then I really struggled with what to prepare the students when reading, but they did need a lot of background information. So I did spend, I created an outline of the Trojan War for them, the house of Arcturus, the oath of Tiberius, and they really loved this oath. Like every time they were like, it's all about that oath. And then sense of place and home. And then again, the activities, I'll just share some of my activities. If you're interested, I'll share anything you wish to have. But I had to really explain how to read the book, discussion habits. We used Jamboard, character role play, reading and analyzing, and then they did a culminating presentation. So if you, is anyone teaching the Iliad this year, would like to share if you'd like to share anything that you've done or what you need me to talk about or address, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not an expert on everything, but I will aim to find out any information I can. So are you just taking the Iliad course this semester with Dr. Allen?
Patty, I was just going to say that I personally am always interested in ways to make it, I don't love to use the word accessible, but relatable, I think, is even a better word. And you were mentioning before we started that students can be intimidated by the text. So I'm always really interested in the ways that you bridge that, sort of get over that hump of intimidation. Okay. Yeah. And the context setting, the activities that you do that bring students closer to the text. Yeah.
All right, great. Okay. So I'm also taking a look at Indigenous reading currently. And this book, Braiding Sweetgrass, defines reciprocity. I really like the definition. And it's a mutual exchange or dependence that benefits both each and all, but also includes mutual responsibilities. So this helped me bridge and connect to the Iliad in the sense that there is a mutual exchange between Agamemnon and Achilles, and Agamemnon breaks that deal when he takes Achilles' prize, Perseus, at the beginning. But there was a lack of mutual responsibility as to how to honor each other. And so they each became, again, personal opinion about this tug of war. And but it made me understand Achilles' anger is a little bit more justified rather than being something arrogant or petty. So before this translation and this definition, I really, being exposed to Verity's translation, it's really helped me to understand, I think, a little bit better Achilles. And so it helped me with explaining certain things to the students as well. Okay, so the first example of a connection that I made actually was suggested by a student when I was teaching mythology. And this individual's name is Prince E, and he's saying why I think the world should end. And what it really reminded me of was a modern day Achilles. He's very angry. He ends on a little bit of a hopeful note. So I really it's 4 minutes, but I just want you to really experience it. And then, I have my own thoughts about it, but if you want to share, Allison and Eli, some feedback, Irene, then that's fine. Okay. So let's hear this.
The world is coming to an end. The air is polluted, the oceans contaminated. The animals are going extinct, the economy's collapsed. Education is shot, police are corrupt. Intelligence is shunned and ignorance rewarded. The people are depressed and angry. We can't live with each other and we can't live with ourselves, so everyone's medicated. We pass each other on the streets, and if we do speak, it's meaningless robotic communication. More people want 15 seconds of fame than a lifetime of meaning and purpose, because what's popular is more important than what's right. Ratings are more important than the truth. Our government builds twice as many prisons and schools. It's easier to find a Big Mac than an apple. When you find the apple, it's been genetically processed and modified. Presidents lie, politicians trick us. Race is still an issue, so it's religion. Your God doesn't exist. My God does, and He is all loving. If you disagree with me, I'll kill you. Or even worse, argue it again. 92% of songs on the radio are about sex. Kids don't play tag, they play twerk videos. The average person watches 5 hours of television a day, and it's more violence on the screen than ever before. Technology has given us everything we could ever want, and at the same time stolen everything we really need. Pride is at an all-time high, humility an all-time low. Everybody knows everything, everybody's going somewhere, ignoring someone, blaming somebody. Not many human beings left anymore. A lot of human doings, plenty of human lingerings in the past. Not many human beings. Money is still the root of all evil. Yet we tell our kids, don't get that degree. The jobs don't pay enough. Good deeds are only done when there's a profit margin. Videos of the misfortunes of others go viral. We laugh and share them with our friends to laugh with us. Our role models today, 60 years ago, would have been examples of what that could be. There are states where people can legally be discriminated against because they were born a certain way. Companies invest millions of dollars hiring specialists to make little girls feel like they need makeup to be beautiful, permanently molding their self-esteem because they will never be pretty enough to meet those impossible standards. Corporations tell us, buy, get this, get that. You must keep up, you must fit in. This will make you happy, but it never does for long. So what can we do in the face of all this madness and chaos? What is the solution? We can love. Not the love you hear in your favorite song on the radio. I mean, real love, true love, boundless love. You can love each other from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. Performing act of kindness, because that is contagious. We can be mindful during every interaction, planting seeds of goodness, showing a little more compassion than usual. We can forgive because 300 years from now, we will learn to move against your friend, your mother, your father, who've been working. The Instead of trying to change others, we can change ourselves. We can change our hearts. We can show lies. Brainwashed by leaders and those who trust and not recognize our brothers and sisters and to exhibit anger, hatred, and cruelty. But once we truly love, we will meet anger with sympathy, hatred with compassion, cruelty with kindness. Love is the most powerful weapon on the face of the earth. Robert Kennedy once said that you will have the greatness to be in history, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in the total, all those acts will be written in the history of a generation. So yes, the world is coming to an end, and the path towards a new beginning starts within you.
Okay, I was fine. I found that very powerful when I first heard it, and it always gets me every time. And I jotted down notes, and what I did was create a discussion with the students about how they would compare this piece to Achilles and how they're similar and how they're different. And so the 15 seconds of fame is what we focused on. The kids really lifted that out because Achilles is so worried about fate, and he's deciding whether am I going to, meet my fate and kill Hector, which means then I then die, or am I going to I'm going to walk away from my fate, go home, get married, but I won't have fame. And so he goes back and forth on this and oscillates a little too long, probably because Patroclus then comes along and again wants to make him look good and honor Achilles. So he goes out there wearing his armor. So again, things are out of balance through all of the book until the very, very end, when Priam supplicates himself to Achilles and requests the return of his son's body. And that's the love, I think, that Prince E's mentioning here at the end, because it is really the first time that someone's actually listened to Achilles, and Priam's acting like his father. It is a father-son relationship, however brief, over grief. And so that helps give us a little bit of forgiveness for Achilles on the way he, killed Hector. So that's one of the things I checked on. So many things that were mentioned. When you play this, there is a version that puts the text all below too, if you want to run this and stop and pause with the kids, which I've done in the past, and then after they've listened to it first. But they're talking about GMOs, the hours of TV. But I picked up on the words pride versus humility. And that is something that both Agamemnon and Achilles are suffering from, their pride versus their humility. And I think it's finally what redeems Achilles is that he puts his pride away and allows a little bit of respect for King Priam at the end and gives him the body. And, so it's the parent-child relationship in different ways. So that is a great way for the students to connect. When one thing we do, we consider the age of Achilles when the war began and the age of Achilles when the war is ending. So it's, about 15, 16 when the war starts, and then he's about 24, 25. So therefore, there's going to be a different perspective just from the age there as well. And one of the questions I asked the kids, who are Achilles' role models? So that was an interesting, they had to think about that, like who is his role model there? Because he's angry at everyone for most of the story. He's not happy with the gods. He's not happy with his friends. He's really just goes off by himself. And I think it's just a moment of crisis. So that is one of the things that we discussed. And we talk about, is this fair with the decision that he has to make? Like, why do I have to decide whether I want to live an ordinary life or die and have fame? why is that fate for me? So is he really truly suffering, or is he drawing that out? So those are some of the things I mentioned when we discuss this piece. And let's see, that's what I'm checking my notes. Okay, and the other activity that I bring on is the concept circle. So I'm not sure if you have seen the concept circle, but basically it's just a different tool. It's just the same as the compare contrast if you want, but I feel like it brings out a little bit more free thinking and for the students to do that. So they can connect. No, there's no such thing as a bad connection. Ask a question, draw a conclusion, visualize, sift and sort, or recognize confusion. So with the Iliad, you know, I have characters, motifs, and quotes, so there's different things that they can talk about. There's questions. You can put it on the board first for the whole class, and then I'll usually print one copy of the concept circle and put it in kids in small groups and put them at the desk so that together they can answer the concept circle in their group, and then they can put their notes up on the circle for the class to see. And you see very different responses. Now the words on the outside are pretty much the themes. You know, the anger, I'm using the Greek word here. It's an honors class, so they're supposed to know that. Fame versus fate, justice versus anger. And then I just, you can leave dots in the middle with nothing, and they can put their own word, or you can put some words there to help students connect to the text in different ways. So hubris, which is pride, responsibility, love, and family. So I had two words that connect with kind of the ending of Prince E's talk, and also with King Priam and Achilles. So making connections between the words in the center of the circle to the concept words on the outside of the circle. And you can add your own and make your own unique combination. So you can take fame and justice, and then you can get very different characters on that connection. You know, you can put, you know, Achilles versus Zeus, and then you have a very different conversation if it's between Achilles and Hector. All right, so, and then fate, both Hector and Achilles are certainly dealing with the issue of fate and what's supposed to happen to them. So it's just a nice activity to get the kids thinking, especially I think this is good after a reading, and then when you're going into a like the next chapter. So I use it sometimes at the end of the chapter, or then the kids can ask me, you know, do we need a concept circle? If they need a tool to help, if they're confused. So we use it two different ways. Then let's see, what the book presentation that we did for the final, I had to think about it. I had last year I had 12 students. There's 24 books. So I just really thought that one presentation for one book was what they could do. The great thing about the Iliad, the translation that I like, is the textual notes at the back. So everybody was to use the textual notes at the back. It directed them to lines. So everyone was pretty successful with that. And then if you'll notice the color coding here that I did. So Sam was brave enough to be the first one that was going to present. So we had to, I put them in threes. So you had to be so Addie had to know Sam's book, and she had to know Peyton's book. So they had to be responsible for reading, sorry, Bill, for reading all three in order to understand their chapters. So Sam had to read 9, which was mine. So I filled in for that spot. And then it seemed to really segue together. Like it seemed the 3 chapters were grouped nicely. And then we got to the end. So as we went through this and the presentations were occurring, and people were working on their chapters, they were starting to make connections, which I did not know what I was going to get, honestly, but they were making connections. So something that Addie mentioned, Christina here in the last chapter was seeing repeated. And so we know through repetition, Homer is helping us to see the elements of the story. So that was really borne out by the connections and what the students noticed as we did the presentations. So I'm planning on doing this again as well. And then I think I had, get where I was with the, sorry, I've got a hunch for my, sorry. Here are, so I didn't know if you were interested in seeing a presentation, but the one thing that I did was have them, let's go to Olivia, she was really good. And they would tell the story, they had to explain it. So they had a criterion, a template to follow. And so she gave her background. A lot of them liked looking with the characters. They did struggle with characters. They were doing really well towards the end. Then a summary, and then important quotes. So I required 2 significant quotes from their book, and they could pick anything they wanted, and they had to describe and tell us why they wanted to discuss that. And then they talked about that. And then she had the inferences, and they had to make a connection. So let's see, she had her themes, and I'm trying to see if she had her connection. She didn't do a connection. They had a hard time with connections. So I can find another one that we'll press on a little bit. But again, this was challenging for everyone, but they really did interpret the book, and they made connections, and they were, as each person presented, there was questions and answers as well. So I found that was them really doing the work and engaged. They were really engaged with the text. They did like that. So, any questions so far? Okay.
I was wondering what her video was on in the slide number 18, I think it was.
Slide 18, is that,
Yeah.
oh, she had a visit. So this, I think this is Hero Course. So we were using we used thoughtcompany.com, and she found this on her own. But I did tell kids they could use this.
Oh, okay, that's very clever. I love the, I think it's very visually compelling.
Yeah.
The whole
Some
presentation.
kids, yeah, they did like this, and it helped them. So she wanted to have, if I'm recalling correctly, she explained what this is, and then she did disagree with some of the things that they were stating. So they could disagree with different things as well. Yep, and I think the last, back to is Christina maybe? I can't see very well. Let me try Michael. All right, so he was doing the end, the last chapters. All right, so he did connection to another literature, and which was, oh, with Octavius after the loss of his limbs. To Shakespeare, I believe. I can't see because you're floating on the right side, what it says. But Octavius here from Marvel Comics is who, Doc Ock. So that's who he connected to, and he gave reasons why, vengefulness, and used his power to do things he wouldn't have done before. So the power corrupted him. So he made a connection to that. All right. Let's see. I also worked, we tried Jamboard. So this was a nice place. This I did early on where I just I found some quotes. I would usually do this once a week, and I would pick something that would relate to the books that we were reading so early on to help the students to understand some of the quotes. But I gave them, this one here: everywhere a man blames nature and fate, yet his fate is mostly but the echo of his character and passion, his mistakes and his weaknesses. And I thought that that was a really good quote to help them try to analyze what's going on with Achilles. Because is he really complaining? Is he blaming people? Or is he, is it part of his character? There's a lot, this is a really, I thought, in-depth quote that helps you really pick it apart. So then they could move to a different, read the quote and apply to one God and to one mortal. So then they had to move to the, I can't, oh, here it is, it's up here. I can't push the arrow to move it. I don't know if I can do it this way. Because I'll stop sharing. Let me stop sharing and click the arrow, and then I'll share again so that you can see. Share. All right, so this, then you can see some of the students. So again, I repeated the quote. This is books 1 through 4. And so they were either responding or picking out different quotes that connect the quote to an event in the book that you have selected to discuss. So again, they did this. So Father Zeus, they did a good job, George says, how have Priam and the sons of Priam done you such great wrong that you rage so relentlessly to tear Ilium apart, that well-built city? And then what they would do is once their quote was up there, they would explain it. So we don't have the explanation, but they were more comfortable lifting a quote out at this point. And then, so I'm scaffolding them to be more comfortable to do the analysis. So.
I love that. And can I just say, I also really find this is such a great way to get them to close read the text. I think Democritus is such a great prompt for this, because that's exactly the question. And it's very subtle the way the Iliad is, and all the Greek texts are exploring this relationship between fate and human character, and divine will and mortal will. So that quote is the perfect invitation to then get them to close read and find those sort of subtle, sort of ambiguous moments. So yeah, it's really brilliant.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Because I that was new for me. That was a new one for me to know. But I also, with fate, I had a document. I made a document with different quotes on fate. And for example, Ralph Emerson, fate is nothing but the deeds committed in a prior state of existence. I have Albert Einstein, the individual must not merely wait and criticize, he must defend the cause the best he can. The fate of the world will be such as the world deserves. I really like that one too. So the exercise was, and they had 20 quotes, it's 2 pages. And they picked the quote that they want to apply to a character or to the text that they just read, or that they want to use to analyze something in the book that they've read. So we used that a few times as well. And I did the same thing with home for the Odyssey. So just taking that theme, that theme, fate, they really do understand from reading Romeo and Juliet. And they had the juniors that I taught last year, they had read the Odyssey, although an abridged version of the Odyssey, not the Verity. So this year, I taught the Odyssey by Verity's translation for the first time. So I'm already planted some seeds for when we get to junior year. So, so that was on fate. And then I did create a Prezi, and at first I was just presenting it to them, and then it became like my study guide. And so this Prezi, I needed to figure out a way. So I had like a handy dandy worksheet, you know, which is very boring. But I wrote an outline of the Trojan War, causes of the war, preparation for war, actual war, fall of Troy, and after the war. Because when the book ends, they were like, well, what happens? Like, you know, like Achilles is still alive. So they were, you know, so this was born. But I did put in some different connections. So if you just want to have a little fun, you've got Peabody here. I don't know if it's going to play. I'll see if it plays. I don't know if it's going to work. Sorry.
Looking good, Diomede. Menelaus, the man. The man. Are you ready to get on the field, Sir?
Sure thing, Mr. Agamemnon.
That's cute. Odysseus, what news do you bring? Someone left this for us. A present. Nice. It looks just like our horse. Should I bring it inside? It'd be rude not to. No! I did not see that coming. Greetings, men of Athens, Sparta, and Thebes. Peabody here. Kill him! Ah!
Oh, Dad, it's an adoptive relationship.
Oh.
So just something light to bring it into, you know, make people understand that it's a text that transcends a lot, for sure. It's a little bit of fun, but where am I going here now? All right, I don't want to make you dizzy, but you know, I do. So, but how does Odysseus intelligence? We talk about that, and I just want to get to the center. If I just let me just bring it out a little bit. Sorry. And I basically went here with the causes of the war to help them understand Apple of Discord, Judgment of Paris, Abduction of Helen. They had the outline. They could write down a few notes. I was just basically trying to give them the backstory so they would really understand a few things that were, you know, to help them understand that. And then they went, you know, so just basically to know that, because it was important for them to know that Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite were the three that were competing for the golden apple, if you will. And compared it to Snow White, that's an obvious one, and Sleeping Beauty with the not being invited to the christening as well. So fairy tales came in, and that was very helpful to them. So I lifted out a quote of what they promised him, and he chose beauty, of course. There's our, also, how can Shakespeare use the name Paris in his tragic play Romeo and Juliet be interpreted using this classic mythology illusion? And I've often wondered, like, because Shakespeare would have known the story of, you know, the Iliad, right? I think. Am I wrong? No,
he would have.
He would certainly have known the mythology. I don't know about the Iliad, but he would have certainly known the mythology, right?
Well,
Thank you for your support.
I think it comes up in Troy because he wrote the play Troilus and Cressida, and he has Achilles present in that, and Patroclus and everybody. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Lauren. I got lost in myself.
And
Sorry,
then in
guys.
Hamlet, he has. I mean, it's a bit more Aeneid-esque, but he does the Hecuba's lament at the fall of Troy and stuff with the players. So at least the whole Trojan cycle's in his concept. But yeah, I think that's fascinating.
Right, exactly.
So that, you know, and again, that's when I discovered, when reading Romeo and Juliet for so long, and then when you read the Iliad, I'm like, well, like, no wonder it's a big tragedy, you know. So that's what I always thought when I saw that. So But again, they did find this very helpful. So they didn't have to remember the prophecy. They could this became my study guide, and they could go back to this many times. And then preparation for war. But I did have a nice sheet as well in Google Classroom for them to take notes on what they wanted. So if they recognized something that was related to cause of the war, preparation, or the siege, the quarrel obviously becomes prevalent, then they could note that and bring that up. So so that's the Prezi that I have. And so then the other this is the website that I used to explain the oath of the tyrant, the oath in the Greek myth, King Tyrannus. And they really did help. This did help them. They felt that this was helpful. And I basically just asked them like a prompt, without fully knowing, there's an alliance that's created. So what are the risks of belonging to the alliance? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Make a list and then name as many modern alliances as you can. Do you also belong to some sort of alliance? So that also helped the students understand. I think this little do now was helpful. What is an alliance? And when you make an alliance, what is your level of responsibility and morality basically to it? So there's all different levels of alliances. And so that's what we talked about there. And then they did like the House of Arteris, and I found something that in one page pretty much explains it. And then the curse. So why did the Greeks think the House of Arteris was cursed? Let's take a stroll down the family history to see why. And then we go all the way from King Tantalus and his punishment in the underworld to Orestes. And so again, just giving them important names. They don't have to memorize it. I did tell them what I was going to hold them accountable for a test in that. But again, they did want to know why, what happened to Agamemnon. And so this prepares them for that. And then we went into more detail after the Iliad, after we finished reading it. So, and the last thing that I did was I did this. I had a lot. I have one of the posters from the classics education. So it has all of the characters and it's color coded. So I color coded character cards. They really did like the character cards, and so did I. So when we first came in, we're learning the character. So I would put, I have like the Greeks in one color. So here's Odysseus. They all know Odysseus, but they didn't know Agamemnon, Menelaus. They took a while to learn how to talk, say those, and then put them down. So one day you're Odysseus, next day you're Menelaus, the next day you're Agamemnon. And so you had to, they were writing little notes on the back of the card to help people remember. So here's Nestor, and then someone has like notes on the back. So if you got a card, it would help you. So that's how they did that. And then what I did with the cards is, so finally they picked roles and we did some role playing. So we had Athena talking to Achilles. We had, talking to Odysseus, so they could have conversations. And then I had the 6 gods and goddesses. I, picked them. They voted on who needed to be there. And then Achilles was questioning the gods, and the mortals were at another table, and Zeus was listening and listening to the mortals. So you need a strong Zeus or Achilles in order for this to work, and they have to be prepared. But they really were going at it like Athena was so defending Achilles. And then we came together because then Zeus and Achilles had to switch. So then when Zeus went to the gods and Achilles went to the mortals, there was a different conversation that happened. So I do have blocks of 52 minutes. And so we were able to do that in one day, and they really enjoyed the role play. So that was one of the most exciting, successful things that the kids enjoyed, for sure. So, any questions? I think there was one other source I wanted to mention. It was Thought Company. If I could find that. Forget where it is. Thought Company had great epic words. Like it defines the Greek words nicely, and that was really helpful for the students. Maybe it's in my lesson. Let me go here. I think it's in the Google Classroom. If you don't know me, just looking it up. Okay, and well, I can't call it up, but it's thoughtco.com, and I can provide that once I find it. And they had some great resources. The students found that actually more helpful than the hero course, although the hero course was the one that I showed the brief video from Olivia. But if students were struggling, I also wanted to provide a visual, and Course Hero is free. So that for their study guides, and that was helpful to some students that were more visual learners. And so then Thought Company, if they were the student that really needed to see the words and work with that, that was, they could get a nice summary and help them understand. Because I felt like when teaching this, I'm not trying to test them so much. I'm really trying to give them an experience of this is a living text, and it's a seminal text, and they are juniors, and because they're in the academy, they will be attending their senior year at a college. So I felt like they're going to go have a different, sense of place. It won't be at their home high school. They're going to be in a different college. All of them, they have 3 different choices, and this allows them to have a sense of place of this experience. And I said, maybe you can use a Iliad quote when you're in college and impress your professor. So that's what I wanted to share. I'm willing to, if you have any questions, that I think I covered everything that I was planning to. I hope that was what you were expecting. If you have a question, let me know.
Lauren in the chat says, Patty, it's fascinating to see how you bring students with little to no classical background to a place of understanding and empathy with the texts. And I really appreciate hearing your journey of discovery. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think especially for us here in the States, where our students don't have as much exposure to the classical world, the classical texts, other than maybe through mythology units early in elementary school. And those tend to be kind of, what's the word I would use? General, and
Yeah.
they'll take everything and just kind of throw it together. To really tease out some of the unique elements of this text and the Greek approach to mythology is, I think, really amazing that you can do that, and that you find so many ways to connect it also to contemporary culture. Yeah.
Oh,
Not a question, but just expressing how much I love this range of assignments.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job by was very impressed. I used to teach high school, and when I was in high school, I did an honors English also. I was in honors English, and we had a little booklet with a large number of the Greek and Roman myths in them, and that was something that our teacher just gave us to read, and we had a little discussion about it. But what you've done goes far beyond that, because you bring up many issues that will make the students consider the morality of war, the position that people have in war, the question of fate in war. And these are things that, in my opinion, in a democratic society, need to be addressed. And your use of different media to present it, and your way of engaging students in it and getting them to participate and form opinions is very impressive, and I think very worthwhile. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. And I as you were talking, the post-traumatic stress syndrome came up a lot. They did understand, I think, especially with the war in Ukraine going on, that it really did resonate with the students, that it was relevant, and how, questioning, war, and without being political, of course. But the point is that, yes, morality and how to see things from multiple perspectives is really important. That's what I think is important for me. So, and I love the Verity translation. So that's really opened up my eyes for a lot of things.
I have a comment about that translation. I looked it up, and I read passages from it, and I read one critic's comment. He said that he didn't see why the translator decided to show the translation in terms of line by line, according to the Iliad, since his translation, or at least he maintains his translation, is just into prose. But my take, I don't agree with him, because I think today's students are exposed to the poetry they're exposed to is largely void of versification anyway, and that's what you can. I mean, you'll find going back to Allen Ginsberg's Howl, and even earlier into the 19th century, transition to a kind of prosaic poetry. And I wonder how many of your students can actually scan a poem, and when they read Robert Frost's Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, do they realize that they're reading quatrains? Can they individually show the iambs and write them out in short and long, short and accented syllables? I don't think they do that. They don't even hear it, I don't think. So I don't find that criticism relevant. Anyway, I just thought I'd make
Well,
that
thank you
point.
for sharing that.
Yeah, and that's such a great point. I hadn't really thought of it in that way. For me, I'm always thinking about how the translation, if you try to force it to fit a meter of English poetry, of poetry that's designed for the English language, or with the English language in mind, whatever, what do you lose from what's happening in the Greek? And you lose a lot, of course, if you're trying to make it into an English poem. So I'm always focusing on that, but actually your point is also really, really important as well, I think. And I just want to read Allison's comment. You have done so much, Patty, so much preparation for them. Wish I had been taught by you. I'm always saying that, Allison. I wish I had been taught by Patty. It must have been so vivid for them. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Allison. That's very, very kind too. I love the book. So so it's like, that's my job. I have to make it relevant for the student so that they can appreciate on some level. I'm always striving to have them connect in some way. So thank you so much for spending time with me this morning.
Thank you. And one last comment from Lauren.
Sure.
Personally, I'm a big fan of meter and modern poetry, but I never impose modern standards to ancient poetics, which have completely different rules. Also a very excellent point. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Patty, so much. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. And Patty, thank you for sharing these amazing, what a wealth of assignments that can be adapted and worked with. So thank you so much for sharing your creativity with us.
All right, thank you. So if anyone needs any materials, just let Irene know, and then I will be happy to get them to her. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just going to stop this.